afternoon. I'm Stacy Gross, the principal of Western Middle School. It is a pleasure to welcome you to Western Middle School today to honor our teachers, especially since we have one of our own here being honored today. I'd like to begin by first getting everybody to give a big wave to the Western Middle School Wildcat, Wendell, who's sweating. Wendell wanted to welcome you all here today also. So it's my pleasure to welcome all of our honored guests and our board members, the Distinguished Teacher Award Committee, our award recipients, fellow educators, parents, and students. It's a pleasure to have you here today. And as I look around the room and look at the award recipients today, I'm reminded of Howard Gardner's, a noted educational theorist, belief: proper motivation, an affective state conducive to learning, a set of values that favors a particular kind of learning, and a supporting cultural context are indispensable factors in the educational process. As I look at the teachers we honor today, and as you hear about them, you will certainly know not only do they embrace that, they practice it each and every day with your children in their classrooms. So you can join me in just congratulating them all with one quick round of applause. For your musical enjoyment, it is my pleasure to first introduce to you, for our first performance today, the Western Middle School Jazz Ensemble, conducted by Karen Anderson, who will be playing Big Bad Boogie, which will feature some improvisational moments by some of our students. Western Middle School Jazz Ensemble. We're now treated to a musical interlude by the Greenwich Public Schools Middle School Festival Orchestra, conducted by Dr. Constance Barrett, and they will be playing for you two numbers today, The Legend of Duffy's Cut and Bas Danse from Capriol's Suite.
Everybody will be beginning with the Bas Danse from Capriol's Suite. Take a second and read these program notes to you about Legend of Duffy's Cut. It's a 21st century piece. In the year 2000, at a site called Duffy's Cut outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, several seemingly supernatural occurrences prompted an investigation led by several professors from Immaculata University. Dr. William Watson headed the archaeological dig and uncovered the following story 168 years after it happened. In 1832, the Pennsylvania Railroad reported the deaths of 57 Irish immigrant workers due to cholera. As a result, the location where the deaths occurred was named after Mr. Duffy, the Irish foreman who had hired the railroad workers. After studying a multitude of reported ghost sightings, Dr. Watson concluded that the men had died under mysterious circumstances, thus leading to the inexplicable disturbances. His theory is that anti-Irish vigilantes murdered the 57 workers, since such groups were prevalent during the 1830s. The investigation also concludes that there was a cover-up of the incident. Currently, researchers are trying to locate descendants of those workers in Ireland. This pays tribute to the men who died and to the legend of Duffy's Cut.
again to the Greenwich Public Schools Middle School Festival Orchestra and Dr. Constance Barrett. At this point, if you would just give us a moment for a set change, and then we'll be ready to continue with our program.
I pledge Thank you. Thanks so very much to the Festival Orchestra and the Weston Middle School Jazz Ensemble, and of course, the conductors, Dr. Constance Barrett and Karen Anderson. Thank you, too, to Weston Middle School and its principal and my pal, remember that spelling rule? Stacy Gross, for so generously hosting this beautiful facility for our award ceremony. Good afternoon. I'm Esther Bushell, and I have the privilege of chairing the Distinguished Teachers Award Committee this year. I'm pleased to welcome our superintendent, Dr. Betty Sternberg, to her first award ceremony, Colleen Jumbo, the chair of the BOE, State Senator William Nickerson, members of the Board of Education. Would you all stand, please? And our own State House representative and former chair of this committee, Livy Florin. Please allow me a few moments to recognize those people who have been instrumental in this award ceremony. Kim Eves, the Director of Communications, and Allison Olmstead, Kim's secretary, magically make everything come together. They are both efficient and unflappable, and both have great talent in multitasking. Thanks very much. Thank you to the donors whose generous contributions make this annual award and its accompanying stipend possible. Their names are listed in your program. Our committee members are also named in the program. The committee is composed of representatives from the BOE, GOSA, GEA, and the PTA, as well as members of the community at large. The committee has worked enthusiastically, diligently, and thoughtfully throughout the year. Would you please stand? I'd also like all of the distinguished teachers from the past 23 years to stand. Teachers Award Committee has the awesome, in the literal sense, responsibility of selecting 6 award winners from the many nomination packets submitted. There is never discussion or campaigning. Each member reads all of the packets, fills out a selection sheet, and then the votes are tallied. This year, the numbers fell so equitably that, as you can see, we have 2 elementary representatives here, 2 middle school representatives, and 2 high school representatives. We are also honored to have Dr. Betty Sternberg here in Greenwich, and I know that she would like to share some thoughts with you. Dr. Sternberg?
Well, first of all, congratulations. Thank you for being who you are for our children. There was a point in my career where I had a chance to actually interview in depth 20 youngsters from around Connecticut who had graduated from our Connecticut high schools. And I asked them to describe in a word or a phrase their high school experience. And at first, I didn't hear very good words or phrases. And I'm not going to focus on that today because I'm going to focus on the one, actually there were 2 altogether, there was one who said the first word was challenging, exhilarating. And to tell you the truth, after the words I heard before, I was taken aback. And I probed more in depth. And this young man, who happened to be at the time a junior at University of Pennsylvania, told me, when I was probing and asking, why do you say that, who influenced you, those kinds of things, he told me about Coach P. And Coach P was literally, he was a teacher in the school, and he was the coach of the track team. And Coach P used to run around the track with this young man, Steve. And he used to say to him, push through it. It's hard, but if you stick with it and push through it, you're going to get what you deserve. And this young man, Steve, told me about his first year at U of P, which was very challenging for him academically. And he was really thinking about withdrawing. And he said he was sitting at his computer, and the words of Coach P kept in his ear. Stick with it. There's a hard part of this, but if you stick with it and push through it and persevere, you will get there. And here he was talking to me as a junior at U of P. Well, why do I tell you that story? Because it is clear. When I interviewed youngsters, and by the way, there's lots of research about this, that a significant mentor, a significant teacher in our youngsters' life can make a difference, not only while our youngsters are in school, but as for Steve, after he was in school. And I know from having read all your biographies and the multiple steps that you go beyond, that you are the Coach P's for the youngsters whom you touch every day. And with that, I'd like to thank you, honor you, and say how delighted I am to be here with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sternberg. In the past few months, 27 of my former students sent me this email, and I can't think of a more perfect audience to share it with than all of you who are so committed to kids and education and the recognition of excellence in teaching. Dinner guests were sitting around a table discussing what dinner guests always discuss, when one man who worked for a major corporation decided to explain the problem with education. He began by saying, what's a kid going to learn from someone who decided his best option in life was to become a teacher? He reminded the other guests what they say about teachers, those who can do, those who can't teach. Then Bonnie, another guest, a teacher and a person who had a reputation for frankness, replied, I don't make what you make, but I will tell you what I do make. I make kids work harder than they ever thought they could. I make a C+ feel like the Congressional Medal of Honor. I make kids sit through 40 minutes of class time when their parents can't make them sit for 5 minutes without an iPod, GameCube, or movie rental. You want to know what I make? I make kids wonder. I make them question. I make them criticize. I make them apologize and mean it. I make them have respect and take responsibility for their actions. I teach them to write, and then I make them write. I make them read, read, read. I make them show all of their work in math. I make my students from other countries learn everything they need to know in English while preserving their unique cultural identities. I make my classroom a place where kids feel safe. I make my students stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag because we live in the United States of America. Finally, I make them understand that if they use the gifts they were given, work hard, and follow their hearts, they can succeed in life. And so I am proud and I'm honored to introduce to you 6 distinguished teachers who make a difference. Thank you. Susan Lampert, fellow colleague, the retiring assistant principal at Eastern, is substituting for Marie Shimshick, who's the Greenwich High School girls golf coach and couldn't be with us. Sue will introduce Phyllis Dale.
Phyllis Dale exemplifies what one looks for in a teacher and an educator. Her intense devotion to her students and their education sets her apart from the rest. Her time with students often begins an hour before the school day starts and ends more than 3 hours after its conclusion. It often includes weekends and all-day show rehearsals and regional musical festivals. Phyllis directs a girls' select chorus and 2 grade level choruses. The girls' chorus, known as the treble choir, is an auditioned group. The treble choir masters extremely difficult music and always takes home the highest honors or awards at adjudications. The grade level choruses, on the other hand, are open to all students in the grade, and 1/3 to 1/2 of the students in the grade choose to participate. This open door policy in no way diminishes the quality of the concerts at Eastern Middle School. In the classroom, Phyllis challenges all of her students while encouraging their love for music. Students with little knowledge of music learn about various styles of music, famous musicians, and aspects of music composition. She is dedicated to meeting the goals of the program and ensuring that each student has a rich experience. Phyllis is probably best known in the school community for her elaborate evening show productions. Each fall, she organizes a school-wide talent show, which offers opportunities for students with quite varied talents to perform. The 8th grade shows are performed in the months of January and June. One of the productions is always a vast undertaking of a Broadway musical, requiring extensive rehearsal schedule and a 3-day performance. The coordination of these productions is masterfully managed and many additional staff are involved, but the key ingredient to it all is Phyllis. There is no question that all through her career, Phyllis has continued to look for new and better ways to meet the demands of being an exceptional music teacher. She has never been content to rest on her laurels, but rather expands and strengthens her program more with each passing year. In all that she undertakes, she gives 110%. It's with great pleasure that I introduce my friend and colleague, Phyllis Dale, one of the 2007 Distinguished Teachers of the Greenwich Public Schools.
Thank you, Sue. I am greatly honored to receive the Distinguished Teacher Award. It is especially rewarding for me to have colleagues and friends take on the task of writing their nominations for me when they are so busy in their jobs and lives. I began piano lessons at a very young age with my father. In the 7th grade, I decided to become a music teacher, inspired by my band teacher. I have thought for many years that teaching is one of the most important of all professions. What could be more important than inspiring young people and giving them the love of learning? In my 34 years of teaching, I have taught in 2 schools, both excellent, caring, and loving environments with the children as the major focus. My 29 years at Eastern Middle School have been wonderful. The teachers at Eastern are all distinguished. We all go the extra mile for our kids every day. When you enter Eastern Middle School, you immediately feel the caring and loving environment. You can sense it as the kids walk through the halls. My sister, brother, and I grew up in a loving, caring home. My parents always expected us to be excellent students, to be musical, and to be active in our community. My mother, who is here today, continues to be a wonderful role model for me. My husband, George, is also a teacher and has always been an inspiration and great support. I thank you all for this wonderful honor, and I thank all of the many teachers and educators that have worked with me and inspired me to get this honor. Thank you very much.
Kim Sitars will introduce Karen Mark.
For the past 21 years, Karen Mark Cochran has been a caring and dedicated science teacher at Western Middle School. Her students are motivated by her enthusiastic approach to learning. Her classroom is a safe environment where students work to their full potential and feel successful. One afternoon last fall, I overheard my 6th grader saying to her older sister, "We did the coolest thing in science today." She began to describe how they explored the effects of liquid nitrogen in class and the changes which occurred when balloons, flowers, bananas, and other items were dipped into the liquid. This experiment is just one example of how Mrs. Mark Cochran inspires enthusiasm for learning and academic excellence. Her classroom is a fun learning environment, from the hands-on learning activities to the pet corn snake students enjoy holding to the many students' projects on display. I have experienced this firsthand as Mrs. Mark Cochran has taught my 3 children, all very different learners, but all excelled in her class. She elicits a high level of achievement from students by creating handouts and experiments to illustrate concepts and by utilizing differentiated instruction to meet each student's needs and abilities. She challenges students of all abilities. She designs hands-on learning activities to teach concepts and reinforce learning. She recently designed a mini-unit on how to write a lab, and she was one of 15 teachers chosen nationwide to pilot the NASA Classroom of the Future program in astronomy in her class for 5 years, which challenged my son John. After school, she is typically found with many students in her classroom for homework help or one of the many clubs she has initiated over the years, such as the Rocket Club or River Watch Club. Mrs. Mark Cochran has been instrumental in implementing many curriculum changes during her 20 years at Western, including those implemented over the past year to better prepare students for the new CMT science test. Her high mastery of subject matter and respect of students and colleagues are evident in her widespread involvement at both Western and the district. A learning facilitator, science department chair, best support teacher, Minds in Motion teacher, coordinator of the week-long Nature's Classroom trip for 17 years. She also developed and ran the Invention Convention for 13 years. The list is endless. Western students, parents, and colleagues have benefited greatly from Mrs. Mark Cochran's numerous contributions to our school over the past 21 years, 19 years under the leadership of former principal Don Strange, who is here with us today, and with the current principal, Stacy Gross. This is why I am proud to present Western Middle School teacher Karen Mark Cochran for the 2007 Distinguished Teachers Award.
Now that I'm completely embarrassed, my students were in the audience, but I really need now is somebody to go up and get Corny, bring her down here so I can drape her around my neck and feel a lot more comfortable. And I'd rather try to get you all to feel comfortable with snakes rather than me stand up here. But I am here, and thank you. This is quite an honor, especially in light of the fact that I never intended to be a teacher. I came to Greenwich over 20 years ago as an outdoor environmental educator. I took a job as an aide teaching science and reading at New Lebanon School while I looked for a real job in this area. It turned out I loved being at New Leb. I loved teaching so much that I decided to get a master's degree, and I wound up here at Western, student teaching and getting a job teaching 9th grade biology at Western Junior High. I never looked back at that point. My experience as an outdoor educator has helped define the type of teacher I am.
I love getting a reaction from my students. That's how I know they're involved. That's how we have fun, both my students and I, in the classroom. Whether they're quiet or bold, whether they're serious or silly, it's the amazing diversity of the students here at Western that make my job so interesting, so challenging, and fun each day. I would like to thank Kim for her faith in me and for her good-natured harassment to get my forms in and believing in me. My parents for instilling in me strong work ethic that has gotten me this far. Thank you, Dad. To my former principal, Dawn, thank you for your open door policy that really allowed me to grow as a professional. For not squashing the projects that I began before I checked in with you to see that it was okay that I started them. And Dan, I'm so thrilled you're here today. I can't see you in the audience, but I saw you earlier. You're such a role model. To my husband and children, thank you for putting up with all the schoolwork I bring home. I'm sure you would have preferred that we had a little more family time. And I want to thank the 6th grade team. Each one of you is truly a distinguished teacher and deserve this as much as I do. You're supportive and always willing to do anything for me. And most importantly, I'd like to say thank you to all the wonderful students I've had through the years. I was so touched today at the WOW Fest when you honored me. It was remarkable. I couldn't believe it. From Hillary Torch in my first class, to Stephanie and Megan and Nick, and all my other students, you've all touched my life more than you will ever know. You'll always hold a special place in my heart. Thank you very much.
Patricia McGuire, substituting for Leanne Hinkle, will introduce Mary Ann Murray.
It is with pleasure that I introduce Mary Ann Murray, a social worker who has displayed all of the qualities that are the hallmarks of the Distinguished Teacher Award. Mary Ann Murray has worked in Greenwich since 1974 and over the years has been on the faculties of Western Middle School, the Hamilton Avenue School, and Julian Curtis. Mary Ann's 33 years of service are filled with stories of advocacy and support for thousands of children and their families. Mary Ann demonstrates an energy and exuberance that far exceeds her professional responsibility. She is a team player and a consensus builder, continually advocating for the support of her colleagues as well as the support of the students. The result of all her hard work and effective communication is the empowerment of success for students and their families. When I asked Mary Ann if she could name one accomplishment that makes her the proudest, she replied, "The fact that people in the district know I am here and they utilize my services." I think this is the key that many successful people describe. It is a love and a value for the work that they have chosen. Mary Ann demonstrates this love and value on a daily basis. Thank you for all that you do, Mary Ann.
It is without question an honor to be a social worker and be recognized as a distinguished teacher. I can't tell you how proud I am. Thank you. I'm thinking back to when I started here at Western more than 30 years ago, thinking I knew a lot, now knowing I didn't know much of anything, and had John Whalen to show me the way, and I had, for those of you who've been around a long time, I had the gold standard of school social work at Charles McCarroll and Carol Rosenberg, whose example I was left to follow in, whose footsteps I was left to follow in. And how much fun it was to get to know families, to even find students in those days, and to get to be part of really impacting the whole life of a child. was way back when Greenwich schools knew that we educated the whole child before it was as in vogue as it is now. 17 years ago, I was transferred over to Julian Curtis School, and I was welcomed into the Julian Curtis family, where it is just a wonderful place to be. Nancy provides wonderful leadership where she gives you an opportunity to try what you want to do what you need to do, as long as you get done what you have to get done. And she and Trish are just a terrific team that set a wonderful example for all of us as staff members. Julian Curtis is a distinguished faculty, and the parents and the children are just my pleasure to know and to work with. I also have had the honor in the last few years, since Mary Ford has given me this new title of district social worker, where I work more in committee. I work more with preschool children who are looking to find opportunities in preschool, which they might not have been available to them. And I work through the Graustein Discovery Foundation to make a difference for children. And through that opportunity, I have met some wonderful, wonderful families, some of whom have come out today, and worked with members of the community from different agencies in ways I hadn't before. And it is a thrill to be able to try to make a difference for children through this kind of work. It's been a pleasure in Greenwich. I love it. I've always loved it. My family, my husband Phil, my daughters Sarah and Elizabeth are here today, and they have supported me. And at times I think they too have groaned and said, "How come you're not home for dinner, Mom?" But that's okay. They've supported me, and I thank them for that. I thank everyone. I accept this on behalf of my department and the Julian Curtis community, and I'm just thrilled. Thank you very much.
In his long career as town-wide coordinator for social studies, Michael Batchelor has observed, supervised, and mentored hundreds of teachers. He knows and he appreciates good teaching, so when he sees Christina Shaw teach a class, this is what he says. Christina creates masterful and seamless lesson structures that guide her students from point to point in her lesson. A master teacher, her content knowledge is both deep and broad. Christina is relentlessly persistent and skilled questioner. Christina has the extraordinary capability to create a learning environment that combines comfort and challenge. Her students always feel safe enough to take intellectual risks. What I know about Christina comes directly from her students. They come from her honors classes, her remedial classes, and from Stand By Me, the program that she coordinates in our house. They sit in my office and they tell me about their beloved Miss Shaw. And this is what they say. Miss Shaw has helped me finally understand and appreciate history. Another one says, I'm a part of Miss Shaw's Stand By Me program and she stays after school to help me. She wants me to really make it. A third student says, school has always been hard for me, but Miss Shaw has made me feel smart for the first time in my life. Two of Christina's students, Catherine Crow and Bianca Nani, who wrote letters of recommendation for this award, are here with us. Kathleen, stand for a second. This is what Kathleen said. Even though school is hard for me, Miss Shaw has found many ways to help me succeed. Miss Shaw made me want to go to class. The lessons were always exciting and made me want to learn. The other student is Bianca Nani. Bianca says, as well as Miss Shaw being a wonderful teacher, she is also a wonderful friend to me. She is never judgmental and is always willing to help and listen. I know I can depend on Miss Shaw personally and academically. It is a pleasure for me to introduce to you now Miss Christina Shaw, distinguished.
incredible welcome. I'm so moved. Thank you, Joan. And thank you, girls, for all your work. I would like to start off by thanking the Distinguished Teachers Awards Committee for giving me this incredible honor. Hi, baby. I also express thanks to Sheldon House Master Claude Frank and our social worker, Joan Lowe. They are my inspiration and make me feel valued every single day that I enter that building. I appreciate their positive energy and their guidance in getting Sheldon House to think creatively and finding solutions to meet all of our students' needs. Thank you to Michael Batchelor, who might very well be the smartest guy that I know. He is a fellow teacher and a wonderful mentor. His scholarship is untenable. His energy is remarkable. I want to be like you when I grow up. And a huge thanks to my fabulous students, Kathleen Crowell and Bianca Nani, who worked tirelessly with Ms. Lowe on my recommendation. As my student, your support moves me most of all. It really does. And those quotes, when I read them for the first time, made me cry. It is because of students like you that I am able to laugh and learn my way from August to June, because it is a long year. Without the kind words of these people, I would not be standing here today. Thank you for making me feel like a winner, even before I got that call from Dora Williams, who told me on behalf of the committee that I had been selected for this honor. And what made that call even sweeter was that her son Daniel, who happens to be in my World Beans class, was in the background screaming, "Is that Mrs. Shaw? Is that Mrs. Shaw?" That made it all the more special. With a mother who was a first grade teacher for 30 years and a father who became a middle school principal in New York City by the age of 28, on the day of my birth, I might add, many people believed that teaching was in my blood. Sometimes you struggle, though, with who you are. I fought the urge to be a teacher until I was in graduate school. It was doing the student teaching that I did at that time that I realized that teaching might very well be my calling. At Bronx High School of Science, where I first started my teaching career 10 years ago, my assistant principal at the time confirmed this feeling that I had inside of me, saying after a particularly satisfactory lesson, "Wow, you're a natural, girl." But I realized that there's no magic genetic makeup to being a distinguished teacher. Like everything else, it is the teacher who struggles to find the solution, the teacher who puts in endless hours, the teacher who listens to her students and her colleagues, who moves closer to greatness. As a teacher, you work hard to leave your students with something more than just facts about history. You hope your students become better writers, better thinkers, even better people, if you're lucky. To make students like these, students who reach for the stars, takes teachers to do the same. It is wonderful to work in a place like Greenwich High School, where so many people care so much about the young people there. Our school is full of teachers who stay late after school planning lessons with colleagues, who skip lunch periods to make sure that students write essays the way they're supposed to be written. We have parents swarming the building, trying to make our job easier. We have counselors and support staff like Joan Lowe, who make it their point to personally know each and every student in their caseload. And it's not just students who need support, but teachers as well. And I'm blessed to have support not just in my career, but at home as well. I have two very small children, and you heard my daughter calling my name before, and I couldn't do my job if it wasn't for the support that I had from my family. So I want to thank them now as well. The most important lesson I have learned as a teacher is that the best teachers never stop being students. We need to remember what it is like to sit in the small chair in the classroom, and to be humble enough to learn from each other and to listen to our students. The more I teach, the more I realize I have so much to learn about what makes a school successful. And I feel blessed that I will continue that education here at Greenwich. Thank you very much.
all day I kept thinking about how am I going to introduce this incredible lady in a minute, and then I kept hearing Gloria's voice saying to me, hey, I'm from New York. We can do everything in a minute. So I'm going to give it a stab. Introvert, extrovert, naughty, nice, and everyone in between has an opportunity to grow in Mrs. Sprague's class. She recognizes and appreciates where the child is academically, emotionally, and socially. She emphasizes strengths and challenges weakness. She encourages her students to work independently and marvels at the work they produce. Mrs. Sprague brings excitement and curiosity to her lessons, creating a rich learning environment for every student. By no coincidence, Mrs. Sprague has been nominated 7 times. How many times? 7 times for the Distinguished Teacher Award. Also no coincidence is the amount of visitors, teachers, educators, parents, schools, and organization Mrs. Sprague welcomes to her classroom during the school year in the midst of a lesson. When asked the secret of her remarkable teaching skills, she tries to explain it, she can't. But she tries to explain that she reads the books, she attends the seminars, but she walks away without a formula. Instead, she picks up a tool here or there to enhance her teaching, remaining flexible to the students' needs. She listens to her students. Anyone lucky enough to have her child attend Mrs. Sprague's class would agree that success for Mrs. Sprague comes from combining great skill with great love. I want to introduce you a wonderful distinguished teacher, Gloria Sprague.
Lise kind of blew my joke. I was going to say distinguished teacher is easy. Well, not that easy because it took me 7 nominations to get here. But it is easy because I teach at Hamilton Avenue School. The Hamilton Avenue staff, which includes administrators, teachers, parents, secretaries, are hardworking, creative, and caring. After all, look, we moved from Moldy School, packed up in the middle of the year, went to the modulars. I think we just are wonderfully roll with the punches. And I have learned so much under their guidance and support through the years. Then we have the wonderful parents of Hamilton Avenue School. In kindergarten, it's a little different because the parents have to pick the children up at dismissal. And that's when I get to talk and know the parents. And through the year, I find that we not only share a common interest, the children, but we also share a little bit of each other's lives. And finally, of course, there's the wonderful Hamilton Avenue children. Each year, a new class with a unique personality. In the morning, I play classical music as the children come in. When the loudspeaker gets on for the announcements, my children yell, "Mrs. Sprague, the pledge!" We immediately go over, turn off the tape recorder for the music, and we do the pledge. The other day, I was looking around, and we're standing getting ready to say the pledge, and as I was looking, I saw all my students, different colors, different backgrounds, different cultures, and different accents, with their hands over their heart, saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. And I thought to myself, what a wonderful way to wake up each morning. Thank you.
Now, Christopher Leddick will introduce Dana Tulata.
Ms. Dana Tulata is honestly the best teacher I've ever had and a great friend. And anyone that encounters her can easily spot that she truly takes pleasure in her job and making a difference in the lives of her students. With a smile on her face and enthusiasm in her voice, she makes learning what may be the most difficult material for some actually fun and understandable. To review for her test, she may have her class play math basketball, my personal favorite. And after answering a question correctly, teams get to shoot a basket. Dana also manages with ease to get every student to participate. She'll occasionally have everyone answer a question by holding up the correct number of fingers in front of their chest so they're not embarrassed to answer in front of the class. Not only is she such a positive influence on her own students, but Dana also serves as a great role model and advisor to the students outside of her own classroom. She serves as student government advisor, senior class advisor, and freshman cheerleading coach, and that only begins to scrape the surface of her roles at Greenwich High School. Dana does so much for her students and at Greenwich High School, Dana does so much for her students. Greenwich High School would be it would be a disservice to pass her by unnoticed. It was truthfully my pleasure to nominate her for this award. She should be very proud of herself for how much she has accomplished at such a young age, and I look forward to seeing the impact she has on future generations.
One of the joys of having last name beginning with T, as I'm sure many of you can relate to. Last but not least, I really wanted to thank Chris Lettich so much for going out of his way to nominate me. Some of you might know this, but the process actually started back in October. He approached me during one of my opens with a big smile on his face and this packet in hand and said, "Ms. Salata, have you heard about the Distinguished Teacher Award?" And I said, "Well, I've heard about it, but what are you trying to say?" And he said, "You've done so much for me that I want to do something for you." And I will always remember that, so I thank you very much, Chris. You're a wonderful student. Had him when he was a sophomore back in Honors Algebra 2, and I convinced him going into his junior year to run for the operations committee of student government, which is in charge of all the attendance, and Chris ran for it and was obviously elected, and he continued to do it this year, so I will definitely miss him as he moves on to William & Mary next year. So congratulations for that. The next person I want to thank is Barbara Collins, the head of the math department. I first met Barbara when she was a teacher at Central Middle School. We had to do, during one of our staff activities, staff development day, we had to do calculator versus non-calculator, critique what we thought should be appropriate for tests and quizzes. And I was extremely afraid of Barbara because she was so powerful and had so much to say. And here I was, little first-year teacher. And I don't know if she remembers that, but her motivation was something that always struck me. So I thank you for your recommendation and everything that you've done to help keep me positive throughout my 7-year teaching career so far. I also want to thank one of my dearest friends, Sean Harriman, who works with me. He's a social studies teacher at the high school. We both started the very first year in Folsom House. He is an amazing individual. He's one of my best friends, and he shares a lot with me in terms of doing student government with me. And we actually did the Connecticut Writing Project together a whole summer long a couple of years ago, so he's very dear to my heart. I also wanted to thank my parents and grandparents for coming from New York to come and see me. So thank you, Mom and Dad and Grandma and Grandpa. My parents always from a very young age have always said to me, you're a winner, Chalata. So that's always been part of me, and I hope that's what I instill in all of my students each and every day in the classroom. I also remember one of my teachers it was actually my phys ed teacher back in high school, said, "Come on, Salata, you have that burning desire." So I've always felt that teaching was just a real natural fit for me. So what else on my list? I knew I was going to forget somebody. So I have these cheesy note cards. Oh yes, my boyfriend Peter. Sorry. I knew I was going to forget. Sorry. He's wonderful. And I think that he's learned a lot about what it takes to be a distinguished teacher, and I give him so much credit for putting up with many long hours. I know he gets frustrated with that, but he's a sport, so I appreciate that. As I look through, who else? Okay. I also wanted to obviously thank all of my students because, as many of you in this room know, you teach because of the students, and I can honestly say that out of all of my college friends that I still talk with, I'm one of the lucky ones because every day I wake up and I look forward to going to work. And it really is because of the students and because of the wonderful staff members at Greenwich High School. To be honest, when I was applying right at college, I showed up at Greenwich Country Day because it was one street away from Hillside. So that just shows you how, not that I was not prepared, but I just honestly didn't know where I was going. It was off Fairfield Ave. And I walked in and I said, "Hi, I'm here to see Jane Schiller, head of the Math Department." And they said, there's no person by that name. I said, "Is there a Greenwich High School?" And just one street down. So I guess it was meant to be, so I'm glad that I finally made it, around the corner to Greenwich High School. So I also wanted to thank all of my friends and colleagues that came out to support me today, because you didn't have to be here, and I do appreciate that. And we will eat very well later at Eccles, so thank you for that. I also wanted to congratulate the 5 of you. It's a privilege to be up here on stage with you, and I wanted to thank the committee members and everybody else that played a part in this. So thank you so much.
Now a collective round for everybody. Now I'd like to present Colleen Jumbo, the Chairman of the Board of Education.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you here and thank you for coming to celebrate this occasion. I've come to this occasion annually for years, and I have to say, I'm usually so overwhelmed after the stories. I'm a little speechless, but I'm asked to give a Board of Education perspective, and I would like to do that. The Board of Education spends a lot of time talking about what our expectations are for the student experience, and what we'd like the students to have is teachers who can teach them this knowledge and skills not only to survive, but to be successful in their next steps. We want them to help the students develop organizational, time management, and interpersonal skills that will enable them to work cooperatively with others. We want teachers who understand the level that the student is learning at and be able to move the student forward. And all of this requires really dedicated professionals and a positive learning environment that can only be provided by teachers and other professionals who really understand what they're doing and understand the best interests of the students. And that's what we ask in Greenwich of our teachers, and it's not an easy task. But the strength of the Greenwich Public Schools is our teachers, and the 6 that are here are really the epitome of what we expect in Greenwich, and it's wonderful to hear their testimonials and the nomination speeches. These teachers have excelled with providing the students with the tools that they will need to succeed, and they also, and this is really important, they model the interpersonal skills that the students will need to be successful in the world. And in addition, these distinguished teachers have reached the students in a way that have encouraged the students' creativity while developing their academic mastery. Thank you, Distinguished Teachers Awards Committee, for providing this opportunity for us to gather together to recognize the accomplishments of these teachers. And to the 6 distinguished teachers, we applaud your abilities and your successes on behalf of the students of Greenwich. It is the Board of Education's honor and privilege to be here today to recognize you and honor you for your accomplishments. Thank you.
Now, we can't always rely on you, Bill, can we? Sometimes the Senate is in session. But sometimes it works out. We are so thrilled to have Senator William Nickerson with us. He's always been a huge supporter of our organization. Thank you so much.
Oh boy, thank you for inviting me to this fabulous day. I want to thank Miss Valentine. None of you in this room ever heard of Miss Valentine. Miss Valentine was my first grade teacher. Do you have any idea how long ago it was I was in first grade? However long ago you think it was, double it. Like these fabulous teachers and fabulous human beings, she inspired me, coached me, moved me, picked me up when I fell down, pushed me forward, and made me learn. And as I look back on it all, none of those were the most important lesson. The most important lesson as I look back on it all that Miss Valentine taught me is how incredibly we who have the privilege of being part of our government and leaders depend on you. The 6 of you, the others out there, and many others throughout this whole system. Why do we depend on you? Because we depend on you educating our young people to make them think and learn and know and search and be the great citizens that many of them will be. I can't say anything more than that, but thank you, Miss Valentine, and thank you, you 6 fabulous teachers.
I wonder if Miss Valentine knew Miss Forrest. She was my 3rd grade teacher.
Miss Valentine was over.
I'm not so sure. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out today to recognize the achievements and the accomplishments of these wonderful, wonderful teachers. This is a tough time of year for them. I know of what I speak. And I'm just so appreciative for everybody's being here to celebrate the excellence of these 6 people. Thank you so much, and please join us for a reception across the hall in the gymnasium. Thank you.